There are families that, from the outside, seem to have everything. A beautiful home, luxury cars, well-behaved children, and brilliant careers. Within the Vietnamese immigrant community in the United States, the family I'm about to tell you about was once a source of pride. A living testament that the children of immigrants could rise all the way to the top. Just weeks before the tragedy, the media was still praising them as the kind of family others could only dream of becoming. And yet, only recently, in May 2026, in one of Houston's wealthiest neighborhoods, all 4 members of that family were gone. The case immediately sent shockwaves across the United States and struck deeply at the Vietnamese community abroad. Hello, everyone. This is the Asia Dossier. The tragedy that left all of Houston stunned is the story I want to share with you today. Together, we'll peel back each layer of what happened to understand how a family once admired by so many could vanish in a single night. And to understand this story, we must first talk about where it all happened. That wealthy Houston neighborhood has a name: River Oaks. It sits within the Interstate 610 loop, nestled between the city's urban core and the bustling uptown district. Vietnamese residents living nearby often say there's something unusual about the place. Just outside, the city is loud and restless, yet inside, the neighborhood is almost unbelievably quiet. River Oaks was developed by 2 brothers in the real estate business. They began acquiring land early, built homes according to a carefully controlled master plan, and focused above all on allowing residents to live privately and comfortably, without disturbing one another. Even the least expensive homes here cost around $1 million, while the most expensive can exceed $20 million. In 2013, River Oaks was ranked among the Houston neighborhoods with the highest home prices. The community also has its own country club, featuring a golf course originally designed by architect Donald Ross and later renovated by Tom Fazio in 2015. A place like this is naturally reserved for a certain social class. Most of the neighbors are doctors, attorneys, oil tycoons, and corporate executives. It all began in May 2026, when residents on Kingston Street sensed that something was wrong. Police received a phone call. The caller was the family's nanny, accompanied by a frantic woman who identified herself as the homeowner's younger sister. The nanny explained that her job was to care for the 2 young children in the house. But since the previous evening, she had been completely unable to reach their parents. More than a dozen calls went unanswered, and every text message disappeared into silence. The detail that truly terrified her, and which the family later confirmed, was that she had gone to the school that day to pick up Max and Maya, just as she always did, only to be told that neither child had ever arrived for class. Fearing that something terrible had happened, she rushed to the house. The gate was locked, and the house beyond it was completely still. She rang the doorbell, but no one answered. She immediately called the homeowner's younger sister, and the 2 of them began contacting friends and searching through emails and social media. No one had heard from the family. The nanny also revealed another important detail. The homeowner was known for being exceptionally punctual. Every matter in the household, large or small, was carefully organized and arranged. For her to suddenly disappear without a single word of warning was completely out of character. Even more troubling, her husband had also become unreachable in exactly the same way. But what left everyone most deeply unsettled was that the 2 children were nowhere to be found. After receiving the report, police arrived at 5:26 that afternoon. They knocked on the door and called out loudly, but only silence answered them. Eventually, they were forced to break in, and the moment the door gave way, even the most experienced officers stopped in their tracks. All 4 people inside were already dead. The homeowner, 39-year-old Di Mitchell, was lying in the upstairs hallway. Not far away, inside a bedroom, her husband, 52-year-old Matthew Mitchell, lay motionless on the large bed. In the 2 children's bedrooms next door, police found 8-year-old Maya and 4-year-old Max. All 4 had been shot in the head, and a gun lay silently nearby. Houston police confirmed at the scene that no one inside the house had survived. The most heartbreaking sight was that of the two children lying still in their own bedrooms. They looked as though they were sleeping peacefully, except for one terrible difference. They would never open their eyes again. As news of the tragedy spread, the entire neighborhood was shaken. One neighbor who had lived on the street for many years opened up to local reporters. His voice caught as he said that in nearly 2 decades there, he had never even heard of a burglary. But now, one question hung over everyone. Who had done this? Had someone quietly planned this terrible tragedy? Or was the truth even more brutal than anyone dared to imagine? After examining the scene, police did not rush to classify it as a home invasion or robbery. The reason was that the evidence inside the house kept pulling the investigation in the opposite direction, back toward the people who lived there. And as detectives began looking into the family's background, they discovered that both husband and wife were prominent figures in the local community. The 39-year-old woman, Thai Mitchell, was a first-generation Vietnamese-American who had grown up in a family where the kitchen stood at the center of everything. Tell her life story in almost any immigrant community, and people would nod and say that this was exactly what the American dream looked like. She grew up in Houston. Since her grandmother's generation, her family had run a Vietnamese restaurant. It was nothing luxurious, just a small place tucked away on a street corner, serving steaming bowls of pho and plates of spring rolls while supporting an entire family. On weekends, while other children were outside playing, Thai was already at the restaurant with her mother and grandmother. She waited tables, cleared them, and poured drinks for customers. At that age, she could hardly have imagined that those grease-scented afternoons would one day become the most valuable foundation of her entire life. That hard-working young girl continued to grow and pursue dreams of her own. She attended the University of Houston, earned a bachelor's degree, and later completed a master's degree in human resources at Pennsylvania State University. Thai wasn't the kind of person who was easily satisfied or willing to stop. She threw herself into the corporate world, steadily rising through the human resources divisions of major companies, and eventually holding senior HR leadership roles at 3 Fortune 500 corporations. Her experience spanned both the hospitality and retail industries. In a corporate world where men still held most of the top positions, reaching that level as a woman required more than professional skill alone. It demanded relentless determination, along with a subtle grace in dealing with people that not everyone possessed. As she grew older, Thai's passion for food burned even more brightly. She decided to set aside years of management experience and do something that stunned many people. She stepped fully into the culinary world and built a business of her own. But food wasn't the only path she pursued. In 2023, she and her husband also entered the fashion industry, creating a travel-inspired brand called Foreign Fare. Every city she visited, every flavor she tasted, and every view she took in found its way into her designs. At the same time, she was elected to the board of the Houston chapter of the Texas Restaurant Association. From a young girl washing dishes and waiting tables in an immigrant family, to a leadership role at a Fortune 500 company, and then to becoming a culinary entrepreneur and co-founder of a fashion brand, her journey was truly remarkable. Thai's life seemed to follow a path that only rose higher. She became a source of pride for Houston's Asian American community, and the answer to a question so many immigrant families quietly carried in their hearts. Just how far could the next generation go? A woman as accomplished as Thai with a flourishing career also seemed to have a picture-perfect family life that outsiders could only envy. After all, the background of her husband, Matthew Mitchell, appeared in many ways even more impressive than her own. For people like Matthew, the word elite seemed to have been attached to them from the moment they were born. He earned his bachelor's degree from Emory University, one of the most prestigious private research universities in the American South. From there, his academic journey carried him across Europe, through France, through Italy, and eventually to the University of Oxford in England, studying while gathering experiences along the way. His resume was almost too impressive to be real. After completing his studies, Matthew chose a career that sounded romantic and free-spirited in itself, journalism, and writing. He worked as a writer in London, then Paris, and later New York. Throughout those years, he lived among some of the most captivating cities on the planet, wrote countless stories, and witnessed the vastness of the world firsthand. During that period, Matthew was probably the kind of person all his friends secretly wished they could be, traveling from place to place, doing work he loved, and living a life that was both free-spirited and principled. But after years of wandering, there eventually came a time when he wanted somewhere to settle down. Matthew returned to Texas and enrolled at Rice University's Jesse H. Jones Graduate School of Business. This time, he turned in a completely different direction. There were no more words and no more newsrooms, only business. After graduating, he entered the pharmaceutical industry. In that world, his business instincts proved every bit as sharp as his writing once had been. He advanced rapidly, eventually rising to become president and chief executive officer of the Texas Center for Drug Development, a Texas-based company specializing in clinical research. By then, it wasn't only his social standing that had changed. Wealth and power were both firmly within his grasp. But Matthew was clearly not the kind of man who could remain still for long. After more than 14 years in the pharmaceutical industry, he stunned everyone once again with another dramatic career change. He devoted himself to the culinary world, and it was food that ultimately brought him and Thigh together. United by a shared passion for travel and great cuisine, the two fell in love, and before long, they became husband and wife. A few years later, their two beautiful children were born. Thigh and Matthew were not simply a married couple who connected on a deeply personal level. They were also business partners who worked together with remarkable harmony, down to the smallest detail. So just how remarkable was what they built together? Together, they opened a restaurant called Traveler's Table in the Montrose neighborhood. Montrose is the kind of place people love to explore on foot, where antique shops and free-spirited art stores coexist comfortably with a vibrant fashion culture. In the heart of that lively district, food from every corner could be found, from Mexico and the Mediterranean to Europe and across Asia, alongside countless cafes and bars, each with a personality of its own. Traveler's Table embraced a style that blended flavors from around the world. Every memorable dish they discovered during their travels stayed with them, and when they returned to Houston, they recreated those flavors in their own way for diners to enjoy. The concept was immediately embraced. Before long, the restaurant became one of the city's hottest destinations, constantly crowded with guests and even attracting the attention of national media. The couple also showcased their culinary creations several times on Food Network, one of the most influential food channels in the United States. Their executive chef even competed on the popular cooking show Beat Bobby Flay. And Bobby Flay, it should be remembered, is an icon in American cuisine. Yet their chef actually defeated him. And that was when the couple's story truly exploded. A hard-working, talented Vietnamese-American joined forces with a former pharmaceutical executive to open a restaurant, and their chef went on to defeat a nationally renowned culinary icon on television. A story like that only had to be posted on social media to become an instant sensation. Riding that momentum, the couple opened a second restaurant with a concept of its own called Traveler's Cart, specializing in street food gathered from around the world. One restaurant was upscale, the other casual. Together, they covered everything from full meals to quick snacks, serving customers from every walk of life. Their business continued to soar. Around Valentine's Day in 2025, the two were even featured by a local community magazine in a story titled The Fairy Tale Couple. A quick look through the restaurant's website or social media pages revealed countless photos of them smiling brightly beside each other. Their two young children also appeared often. The image of that warm and happy family of four was enough to make anyone looking in quietly wish for a life like theirs. Shortly before the tragedy, they had also been named Houston's Restaurateurs of the Year. But if you looked closely at that brilliant picture, there was a silence that was easy to overlook. The person seen everywhere, regularly appearing on social media and at events large and small across the city, was almost always Thigh. She was the public face, the voice, and the light of the entire brand. Matthew was the complete opposite. He was almost entirely absent from the online world, rarely leaving behind any personal trace on social media platforms. He quietly remained in the background, maintaining an almost absolute level of privacy. At the time, no one considered it unusual. People simply assumed that the wife was outgoing while the husband was introverted, each with a different personality. It was only after everything came to light that this seemingly minor detail caused many people to stop and view it differently. Houston police did not take long to announce their preliminary findings. The handgun found beside Matthew's body was identified as the only murder weapon, and a large amount of gunshot residue was found on his hand. After piecing together the bullet trajectories, the positions of the bodies, and the order in which the victims died, police reached a conclusion that all of Houston struggled to believe. Matthew, at the age of 52, had killed his wife and their 2 children, before taking his own life. There was one more detail that wouldn't be clarified until much later, and it made the tragedy even more painful. At the time, she was killed. Thai was pregnant. That meant the number of lives taken inside that house was, in reality, greater than 4. According to the report, the killings most likely took place during the night of Monday, May 4th, 2026, continuing into the early hours of Tuesday, May 5th, precisely when all communication with the family stopped. Because the homes in the neighborhood stood far apart from one another, not a single neighbor noticed anything unusual. Faced with such a devastating conclusion, the greatest unanswered question remained the motive. There was speculation that the family had been experiencing financial trouble. Yet the investigation revealed the opposite. In recent years, the companies operated by the couple had remained financially stable and had even recently raised more than $2 million in funding. The Travelers brand itself was expected to grow into a world-class chain of upscale restaurants. Others believed that the roots of the tragedy lay in cracks within the marriage. But as soon as rumors of an affair began circulating, relatives of the victims immediately spoke out, insisting that the two had been a model couple whose bond was as solid as stone. Another theory also emerged online and gained support from many people. Some commented that at 39, Thai was the executive face of a vibrant young brand, with her career reaching its peak. Her husband, meanwhile, was already in his 50s, and both his career and his health appeared to be entering a period of decline. The contrast between an older husband and a younger wife, they believed, may have caused him to lose his sense of emotional balance. From there, many speculated that after a serious argument, he suffered an emotional breakdown and set the horrifying chain of events in motion. But it must be made clear that all of this was only speculation from people online. To this day, police have never announced an official motive. The first person to speak amid the overwhelming silence was Thai's younger sister, Lee Mai. On her personal Facebook page, she shared a heartbreaking message, informing those who had known the family that her sister, Thai, and her 2 beloved children, Maya and Max, had passed away. In that post, she didn't mention Matthew's name, but neither did she offer a single word of blame. She simply pleaded with everyone to respect the privacy the family desperately needed so they could somehow begin to find their footing amid the loss. After the tragedy, many people were certain that Traveler's Table, the passion project the couple had worked so hard to build, would either close or be transferred to new owners. But after the deaths of its founders were confirmed, the company announced that it would continue operating. In an interview, the company's communications representative said that Thai had been an incredibly close friend. However, because the case was still under investigation, the family was temporarily unable to issue any official statement. At the same time, Houston police also released the contact number for the homicide division, 713-308-3600. They urged anyone with relevant information to come forward and call so that investigators could piece together the full picture of what happened. But amid all the loss and unanswered questions, Thai's family chose to do something gentle. They began establishing a fund called the Thai Mai Foundation, naming it in honor of Thai and her 2 children, Maya and Max, as a way of keeping their names alive. Beyond that, The Texas Restaurant Association and its Greater Houston chapter established a memorial scholarship in honor of Thai Mai, Maya, and Max for young people pursuing careers in the restaurant and hospitality industry. The woman once described by an entire community as a ray of light would, in the end, continue to illuminate the path for those left behind. At the beginning of this story, I told you about a family that seemed from the outside to have everything, and perhaps that is the bitterest lesson this tragedy leaves behind. We're accustomed to believing that if a person works hard enough, becomes successful enough, and builds a respectable enough life, then their home will surely be safe and peaceful. But $1 million mansion cannot stop a bullet. Glittering degrees from prestigious universities cannot heal a wound in the soul. And sometimes, even the brightest glow on the outside cannot reach the darkest corner inside a home. The more successful people become, the more afraid they may be to reveal their vulnerability. The more they feel compelled to maintain a respectable appearance, the harder it becomes to ask for help. More than a month has passed since that fateful day. River Oaks has returned to its quiet calm as though nothing had ever happened. Only one mansion on Kingston Street remains eerily still, a reminder that the perfection we see may not always reflect the truth. This is where today's story comes to an end. What do you think may have driven the husband to commit such a horrifying act? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'll continue to provide updates if any new information about the case becomes available. Goodbye, and see you next time.